processes we're going to talk about today can make a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars in your dealership. Some of you will find this difference in 7 figures. However, I want to start this conversation off by saying that's not why we do it. We do it because it's the right way to do business. And inevitably, you'll always find when you do business the right way, the money follows that. You see, we don't need to beat our customers up with word tracks that manipulate or intimidate the customer into purchasing something they don't feel they need. What we need to do is have consistent processes that provide our customer with an incredible service experience that illustrates what their needs are for their vehicle to be at peak performance every time, every car. Understand, it's the customer's expectation that your dealership is going to tell them what their vehicle needs to be safe. I'm telling you, it's our obligation to tell them what the vehicle needs every time, every car. The fact is, it doesn't matter to me one little bit if your customers buy the recommendations or not. Not one little bit. What matters to me is that your customers are informed and educated about every recommendation with feature benefit presentations in a professional manner. The shocking truth is the staffs at most dealerships don't even recommend or notice what the customer's needs are. They have predetermined in their minds the customer won't buy that, or the advisor won't sell this, or even worse, the technician doesn't like to do that type of work. I was walking through a client's shop during a visit one time, and I got underneath a vehicle, and those that know me know that that's a common practice to walk underneath a vehicle and kind of look it over while it's in the shop. And this vehicle was getting a front and rear brake job. The technician was well on the way to complete the repair, and I noticed the brake lines were corroded so badly, in my view, they weren't safe. I asked the technician a challenging question. Did the customer decline the brake line replacement and approve front and rear brakes? Technician's answer illustrates perfectly why we all need incredible processes and a culture change in our dealerships. He said he didn't like to work on brake lines, so he didn't even recommend them. It was an older vehicle, and I'm sure it had the original brake fluid in it. I've heard technicians say they don't recommend brake fluid flushes because occasionally the bleeder screws are corroded, causing it not to be an easy maintenance item. I've heard technicians say they don't recommend wiper blades because it doesn't pay them enough and would require more time to get an approval than it was worth. Many of you might be thinking, well, I don't recommend brake fluid flushes at all because the factory doesn't include it in the owner's manual. Most of us know that brake fluid draws moisture. My personal viewpoint is that if your brake fluid is over 3% water, it should be flushed out and replaced. Many manufacturers recommend brake flushes every 2 years. Some, like Chrysler, General Motors, Ford, don't have anything in their owner's manual. I understand that. Still, the fluid itself draws moisture. No one would believe that 3% water in a brake fluid is good. Now don't get confused. If you use these chemical strips that companies like BG provide, when you put that chemical strip into the brake fluid, it measures parts per million copper. And that's hard to sell or explain to a customer. There's a nice little tool that I really love that you put into the brake fluid, and it measures the water content. If it's 1% or less, it lights up green. If it's 2% or less, lights up yellow, and if it's over 3% water, it lights up red. I'm using the brake fluid flush as an example because I love using labor op frequencies to see how a shop is doing it. Everyone, all the DMSs have some way to track or measure how many times a particular labor operation was performed in your dealership. In this case, this dealer I'm going to use as an example had 2 brake fluid flushes the entire year. We did install a process where they used this tool and on the drive lane checked brake fluid in front of the customer to see how much water was in it. Checking back with this dealer, they sold 30 brake fluid flushes the following month. Now, doing the math, that's over 40 grand a year improvement on one labor operation. So you can see the feature benefit presentation, and that might be as simple as we're checking your brake fluid and your brake fluid has over 3% water. That can cause internal corrosion. We'd like to flush that fluid out of there, replace it with brand new fluid. Protects the brakes. That's not optional equipment, is it? $40,000 a year improvement on one labor operation. Another example I'd like to use today has to do with batteries. You see, batteries' useful life might be 5 to 7 years. And I find it interesting that the age of the average vehicle is now over 10 years old. I've dealt with many irritated customers over the years of being in business, fixed ops director, and tell you that a lot of times customers were upset because their vehicle was towed in, wouldn't start. We found it the battery, and then their concern is, why did this battery cost me $350 when Walmart puts it in free for $85? I'd go into my standard explanation that the battery wasn't $350. We had $100 for the vehicle to be towed into the shop. Then we had a tow-in won't start, so we diagnosed that concern, finding it was the battery, and then replacing it. You see, the sad part about this is that we failed the customer, really. We should have recommended a maintenance replacement before the battery failed. If we had done that and the customer declined it, their opinion would be dramatically different. They would say, I should have listened to you and replaced that battery as a maintenance item when you recommended it, rather than waiting for it to fail. No matter where I travel, dealerships complain about the manufacturer's special pricing on oil changes and tire rotations. I find it interesting that in every case, they're not performing tire balance operations in any significant count. So if you have 1,000 LOFs, you might have 500 packages, LOF and rotate. Check that labor op frequency. See how many times you're balancing the tires. Generally, I think you'll be amazed that you're not doing that labor operation very much. All of us know to maximize tire life, they need to be balanced every 20,000 miles or so. Occasionally, when we don't balance the tires and rotate them, change the position, will cause a vibration when driving down the highway at higher speeds. In every example, the customer believes that you damaged their vehicle when it was in for maintenance. If they were recommended a rotation and balance and then declined it, they would feel bad about that decision. They'd come back in and politely ask how much additional it would cost to take care of the vehicle properly like you recommended. The other option is merely to have them angry and expecting something for nothing, feeling that your dealership staff is incompetent. It also takes that low-profit labor operation into a more profitable situation for your dealership. A feature benefit presentation about tire rotations and balances takes all of about 20 seconds. Dealing with an upset customer takes a lot longer and always costs money. I challenge you to look at your labor operation frequency on rotation and balance. Compare it to the oil changes you see every month. The reason you aren't selling them is simply you're not recommending them. If you don't ask, you don't sell. You will never hear my company recommend that you sell anything to your customers their vehicle doesn't need. However, I strongly believe the dealership's obligation remains to inform and educate the customer every time, every car, what the vehicle does need to be at peak performance. Obligation is a strong word. I understand that. Your dealership's profitability demands you meet this obligation. Your dealership's customer satisfaction demands you meet this obligation. Your dealership's customer retention demands you meet this obligation. Do you? I recall one more example on the batteries. I was making a visit to a client, and there was a little old lady in the drive lane that had a handicap decal sticker on. And I was walking with the advisor around the vehicle. We popped the hood and we looked it over, and the handicapped elderly lady went into the waiting area. And I noticed that the battery was almost 6 years old. You see, I regret the fact that most dealerships don't recommend maintenance replacements on battery. I wish I had that one over again, because we always want our customer to be safe. Batteries don't fail when it's convenient. They may test good today and in 2 weeks fail. Do you want them in the middle of a desert? Do you want them in the middle of a blizzard? Not on our watch. I asked the advisor if they would go and approach this elderly lady and say that we should install a maintenance replacement battery to keep her safe. And she bought that battery. Thanked the advisor for the information. I said, while we're here, I'm going to be here all day, let's recommend a maintenance replacement on any battery that's over 5 years old. We sold the dealership out of inventory that day. We had to send a pickup truck to go get batteries, and by the time the truck got back with an additional shipment of batteries, we had several customers waiting for their sold batteries to be installed that were on the truck. just asking for a maintenance replacement sells a bunch of batteries. But you see, it isn't about the money, is it? When the focus is on doing what's right for the customer, they're protected. They're safe. We are protected. We recommended it. We informed them, educated them on what their needs are. And we sell a lot more stuff. The money follows the process. Happy selling, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you next week.
Mark your calendars. October 13 and 14, we're going to have our very first advisor training seminar in Cleveland, Ohio. We're going to have 2 days out of your dealership to work with your advisors and maximize their talent, skills, and challenge them to maximize your customer care. It's crazy good. I'll see you there.